Have you ever noticed the completely maddening paradox of failed negotiations? I mean, think about a time you tried to reach an agreement where literally everyone stood to benefit. The math made perfect sense, the logic was sound, and yet no one could agree. It's frustrating, right? It really begs the question, why do human beings consistently reject deals that actually give them exactly what they want? Well, welcome to This Explainer. I am so excited you're here today because our main mission is to solve this exact modern negotiation puzzle. We're going to look at why our brains are seemingly hardwired to sabotage perfectly good deals. And, spoiler alert, we're going to see how a really surprising ancient philosophy actually holds the master key to fixing it. Okay, here is our quick roadmap for the explainer. We'll kick things off with the reactive devaluation trap and follow that up with the psychology of rejection. Then we'll pivot to ancient philosophy with Wu Wei and non-action, explore the strategy of statecraft, and wrap the whole thing up with effortless conflict resolution. All right, let's jump right into section 1, the reactive devaluation trap, and see why perfectly logical negotiations inevitably break down. So, I want to introduce you to a truly fascinating concept out of Stanford Law School that explains this bizarre glitch in human behavior. It's called reactive devaluation. And simply put, it's a psychological barrier where the very fact that your adversary offers you a deal makes you instantly believe that deal is worth less. Just by them offering it, the value drops in your mind. And honestly, this next example brilliantly illustrates the bias. Picture this. It's 1986, right in the middle of the Cold War. Researchers are doing a sidewalk survey using a real, actual proposal to cut nuclear weapons by 50%. When respondents were told this proposal came from U.S. President Ronald Reagan, boom, 90% approved. When they said it was from a neutral third party, still super high, 80%. But when they took that exact same mathematical proposal and told people it came from Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev, approval completely tanked to just 44%. The stark contrast there is just fascinating. We can impartially see how the source's identity completely overwrites the actual objective value of the offer. An identical list of terms is viewed as a fair deal if it comes from a friend, but a suspicious trap if it comes from a rival. The math literally didn't change at all. Only the perception did. And look, this isn't just some product of bitter Cold War enemies. We see the exact same thing repeated in a Stanford University divestment study. Students were arguing with the administration over investment policies. When the university offered them Plan A, the students suddenly decided actually Plan B was way better and demanded that instead. But, and here's the crazy part, in a separate control group, when the university offered Plan B right out of the gate, the students suddenly flipped and rated Plan A as the superior choice. It proves this incredibly frustrating human quirk. We instinctively devalue whatever is freely put on the table. So why on earth do we sabotage ourselves like this? Let's unpack section 2, the psychology of rejection. The crucial point here is that our brains rely on these very specific mechanisms to search for traps. Whenever an adversary acts unexpectedly nice, we immediately apply skeptical scrutiny, assuming there just has to be some hidden fine print. We also use psychological consistency. Basically, our brain assumes that if our rival is offering it, it must be a massive victory for them and therefore a dangerous loss for us. And this brings us to psychological reactance. I mean, why is the grass always greener on the other side of the fence? It's this phenomenon where we human beings naturally covet what is denied to us and we reject what's freely available. When a concession is just handed to us, our brain instantly lowers its value, purely because we didn't have to fight for it. Now, combine that reactance with something called loss aversion, and suddenly a perfectly fair trade feels like a totally losing battle. Researchers Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky actually proved that the psychological pain of losing something stings way, way more than the joy of gaining something equal. So, if a proposal forces us to give something up, that feeling of loss completely overshadows any of the benefits. Okay, let's make a pretty major narrative pivot here. Welcome to Section 3, Wu Wei and Non-Action, where we're going to travel back in time to ancient China to find our missing puzzle piece. We arrive at Wu Wei. This is a foundational concept from Chinese philosophy. It literally translates to not acting, non-doing, or effortless action. Now, I know that sounds a lot like just giving up, but it actually serves as a profound, incredibly counterintuitive solution to our modern negotiation problem. The philosopher Alan Watts described effortless action so beautifully. He said, "The river is not pushed from behind, nor is it pulled from ahead. It falls with gravity." This is such a brilliant analogy because it shows how Taoism views alignment with the natural flow of the universe. It's all about avoiding force or haste. You don't push the river, you just let it flow. But how does a highly abstract, mystical idea actually help us at a bargaining table? Let's move to Section 4, the strategy of statecraft, and see how this evolves into a hard-nosed political strategy. So ancient Chinese legalists, like the administrator Shen Buhai, took this Taoist idea of effortless action and turned it into the ultimate tool for statecraft and survival. While the Taoists were using Wu Wei to find peace and escape worldly affairs, the legalists used it to gain absolute control. They literally weaponized non-action into a deliberate strategic move. They developed what we can call the empty ruler strategy. By completely hiding their desires, covering their tracks, and doing absolutely nothing, the ruler acts as an objective mirror. The ministers are the ones who must propose the actions and take all the responsibility. Because the ruler doesn't act or reveal what they want, it becomes virtually impossible for adversaries or even ambitious ministers to manipulate them. Now let's synthesize these two totally different worlds in Section 5, Effortless Conflict Resolution. How exactly do we apply the ancient concept of Wu Wei to the modern trap of reactive devaluation? Well, to beat our instinct to reject offers, negotiators should use a menu strategy, effectively becoming that empty ruler. Instead of making one specific offer, which, as we know, triggers suspicion and devaluation, you tell the adversary you're willing to make a small step. Then you offer a menu of options, and you let them choose the concession. You do nothing but present the menu. You can also rely on objective methods, what the legalists called fa, or the rule of law. Think of things like using neutral third-party mediators. By getting out of our own way and letting a neutral system do the heavy lifting, the adversary doesn't feel manipulated because they are the ones making the choice. We completely stop triggering that psychological reactance that kills so many deals. The legendary author Ursula K. Le Guin elegantly defined Wu Wei as power that is not force. And honestly, that translation perfectly captures how relinquishing control and simply mirroring the choices back to your counterpart actually grants you the ultimate power in a negotiation. You're guiding the river without ever actually pushing it. By understanding this incredibly human instinct to devalue what is freely given and applying the ancient wisdom of effortless action, we can bypass the ego entirely. So I want to leave you with this final thought to spark your curiosity. Thinking about your next major conflict or negotiation, how can doing absolutely nothing be your strongest move tomorrow? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep exploring.